Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Our guest today is Marion, and he's the CEO of Sownd. And yeah, Marion, why don't you tell a little bit more about yourself and all the cool stuff your company is doing?
Hey, Joey, thanks for the invite. Hi, everyone. I'm Marion Marincat. I'm founder of health and wellness business called Sound Effects. And we are a company that turns noise pollution into noise-friendly environments. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through.
Amazing. And what is the main reason you guys started with Sownd?
Well, sound started from a daily pain that I have, and usually companies start from that, or at least they should. But I've lost my hearing ability when I was 25, 26. Lost 80% of my hearing within a few months. And when you start wearing hearing devices, no matter what age you are, everything becomes louder. Every space, event, experience is just louder. And you can't hear conversations in that environment. You can't connect, you can't socialize, can't hear music. So imagine living like that. It gets to a point where you're either isolated or you do something about it. And I decided to do the latter. And so the last 12 years have been dedicated to shifting how we design experiences and spaces for sound.
I love what you're saying in the beginning. It came because partly I went deaf and it became from a pain point, right? So it means before you actually started your business, not want to start something, let's see where there's a gap. No. And then from finding this problem yourself, you solve this problem and you kind of put it into the world, which feels very general for me if I hear this.
Yes, well, I was always a bit of an entrepreneur. So I had my first venture when I was 16, and it was all about making money. It had nothing to do with any pain other than money in the pocket. So I placed an ad in the local newspaper that I'm doing home cleaning. So that was my first business, and it went quite well. But then when I lost my hearing, I just had this pain that I was dealing with. And then I looked into the numbers and I thought, is it just me? Am I an outlier in the world with this problem? And I discovered that almost 50, 60% of the population has some form of hearing challenge that they're dealing with. And some of these issues are not massive, but 30% of the population have serious reactions to how places sound and feel. From entrepreneur, money making, I want to get rich, be a millionaire very quickly, to actually, I want to solve this problem. That also makes money because it's a global issue.
Yeah, and what you're saying, especially when you have sound issues going on, they are noise sensitive. And what you guys are doing is there's a solution for that, right? So what is the specific companies you are working with, so you can overvalue it with part of what you're doing?
We ended up developing a method of turning spaces, events, businesses into what we call audio inclusive or sound certified spaces. And we use technology. So we use technology to measure how the space is designed, acoustic science. And we use noise monitoring devices to measure how loud that environment gets. And then we also measure people's experience with sound, because sound is very subjective. My noise might be your bliss or the other way around. And so we take all these elements into account and we give spaces a certification that has different tiers. And depending on the space, depending on the size of the business, depending on the type of business. So we take all these things into account. But essentially, someone who is noise sensitive is a very subtle issue for most. So you go into a space, you can't really hear what's happening. People are cracking jokes, you're missing 2 or 3 jokes, and then you're trying to be part of the conversation, putting a smile on. I'm sure most people nodded in conversations, although they had absolutely no idea what the person was saying, but you tend to smile and go ahead with it. And so that's more of an annoyance problem. But people who are noise sensitive, where they have emotional reactions to noise, they just avoid spaces entirely. And so after the pandemic, this has been even where we will to control our environments. And so we've seen a lot of uptake in what we're doing, and the companies we work with are getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, very interesting. And you also, we kind of talked about before the podcast, which was very interesting, the effect as well, right? If people are working in an office, which was very interesting, what you mentioned, once someone drops something, there's a certain noise when people are working, it can kind of take a while before people get back into their concentration, which I never even thought about. Right?
Yeah, it's not something we think about, but it takes about 22 minutes to get back in the flow. So say you're in a small office, you have your back to the door and someone walks in, and as they walk in, they drop their keys on the floor. Now, you're not going to turn around and see what dropped on the floor, but your attention was taken away from what you were doing. And you're still doing that, you're still there, but your ability to be deep in focus is gone. So we need about 22 minutes to get back to it. Noise is actually now number one complaint in workspace and hospitality. I mean, it's bigger than food quality, if you can imagine. Right? So you go out to eat, but you don't care about the food. It's so noisy that you can't even enjoy the conversation, the drink, the whatever. Yeah, there are a lot of impacts with sound and noise that we don't think about.
Yeah, very interesting. But there's a lot of technology in what you guys are doing, right?
So we used to develop. So I was involved in a startup previous to this, where we received 2 grants from the Innovate UK to develop noise monitors and a solution linked to the noise monitors that we developed. Now, if anything about the startup ecosystem in the UK, it's just not a place where you find VCs or funds that invest in hardware. And so we developed technology, piloted, knew exactly what we needed to do, but we decided to pull away from the hardware development side and essentially start again with all the knowledge that we had. Work with partners that have done the noise monitoring devices. So we now have partnerships with noise monitoring companies, US based. And yes, we do acoustic measurement. So everything is AI first developed.
Yeah.
So everything we do is now, luckily, we've been able to develop everything on the right tools and with the right backend and infrastructure. So even if you take the free noise score that we developed, it gives you not only data based on the responses you give it, but it links that to benchmark data in your industry across 8 industries. So your responses are not going to be just, oh yeah, based on your 12 answers, this is where you are. It's actually, this is where you are. This is where you should be, because this is what people want. And it's research backed because we pulled in industry data. So we're using a lot of the new tech to provide answers to the question of what is the impact of noise? How is it even working? Why is an absorbent of noise in a space relevant? Because you can't even see it. And so all these elements are brought together across 4 or 5 industries that we embedded in the solution.
Very nice. And towards AI, because what you're saying, I like that. AI first. That's also part of like our philosophy. And with AI and all the stuff which is going on right now, where do you see AI going in the next 2 to 3 years?
What a question. I have this conversation quite often with my brother, who was head of AI of a very successful scale up. And so we have deep philosophical conversations around this. It's probably very hard to predict where it's going. But what we talked about just a few days ago is that I think something that we already know is going to be a challenge is how we're going to fill up the time that we're gaining from some of the AI tools taking over the repetitive tasks that we were doing for so many decades. We were doing all these boring things every day. I'd love to have a robot that cooks and cleans and use AI in that sense. If I'm thinking about SaaS, I don't know, there's a lot of focus on productivity and speed and that's not that exciting. It's good, but I don't think the next 2 years are going to change dramatically the infrastructure that we build for hundreds of years, and it's there, it's in place. It's very hard to shift that so quickly. So I don't know. I guess in 2 years we're probably going to have a new perspective on how we work, what the next generations will do with their time, like what are you going to teach your child in the next 10 years that is going to be relevant? So that those are probably questions we should and we will ask ourselves in the next 2 years, I guess.
And I love what you're saying, right? That's why we're living. It's maybe uncertain, but at the same time, I think in life where there's uncertainty, there's excitement. So like many of the repetitive tasks, they might not be so important anymore in the next 3 to 5 years. So there's going to be a huge gap, which makes place of uncertainty kind of forces people to kind of improve, right? Or kind of invent. What should I do with my time? Which makes space for a lot of new solutions, which are coming up probably in the next 3 to 5 years as well.
Yeah, I think, of course, there is a bit of anxiety and people feel quite scared. And I think that comes on the back of not understanding what's going on and what the opportunity is here. And then on the other side, we don't know who's deciding where this is going. And that's also a bit scary because you might argue that, on one hand, we have this amazing technology that we can use to improve our lives, but then you will have a handful of people that are not thinking about that. They just want something else. So that might be a tricky one to navigate.
And I think that's also part of us being human beings, right? Even the internet, many people were afraid of the internet. And right now, even as well, right? You can even have the option, or you can scroll on the internet all day, or you can actually look at it. How can I use this to improve my life? So there's always kind of the two options you can choose.
This thing also came up that somehow the stage we're at with AI right now is almost comparable with when in the 90s, the World Wide Web was officially invented. So it was a massive breakthrough that only a few people really understood what that meant. And then came the browsing, the emails, the internet, on the back of that technology and that development. So in a way, it's probably in the same stage when it comes to using AI and automation and robotics, where we haven't seen anything yet. I think it's just starting. It's really exciting to be here right now and experiencing it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And you started with Sownd years ago, right? So my question to you is, and before that as well, you were being an entrepreneur. So during all these years of experience, what are some of the challenges you have faced, which might be a lot, but which comes up to mind right now? And how did you solve those challenges?
There were different challenges in my 20s. And after I failed a few times, and different that after I succeeded a few times. But I think the biggest challenge is who I worked with. So who you work with when you set up a business. And the early days are driven by excitement. It's that honeymoon period that you get in relationships. It's the same with startups, I believe. At the beginning, you're full of energy and ambition. And so whoever is playing the same tune, you think, this is the right person to go in business with. And that's a challenge because at the beginning, you can't really see how the person will change and something might happen to them and how they respond to that. So I had a few experiences with that where because the co-founders and the business partner was not a good fit, it caused a series of challenges that I had to deal with. And one of the biggest challenges was actually something out of my control, which was the 2008 crash. I was at quite a peak at the time, and I had no idea how I got there, what was going on. I had no idea about finance and business. It was just happening to me. And when the financial crash came, I got hit in the face pretty badly. So I wanted to change that and learn more about numbers, operations, safety nets. So anyone who starts in business and already has that in mind, that's a great way to look at things, which I didn't have that. I needed to go through a bit of a pain.
Very interesting. And I also love what you're saying. Once you start to do business in the beginning, you're kind of in this honeymoon phase. So you're really hyped up. And this is very interesting because then once you're like working together with people, you might not see everything in the beginning because you just are so hyped up, right? So it might take a while, like when shit hits the fan, how are you going to respond towards that, right? So that's something really interesting.
So I operate really well under pressure. I don't lose it. I'm quite patient and I can take a step back. But I think most people under pressure become their true self, who they really are when the shit hits the fan. Who do you become? Do you become a child that, whines about everything and is scared and you don't know what to do and you're pulling away or running away or doing something silly? Or do you become someone who's a bit of a grown up and you just face it and you deal with it? And there's a lot of pressure in starting a business, owning a business, even 5-10 years in, you still have a lot of pressure to deal with. And a lot of parts breaking apart, so you have to pull them all together. So yeah, you're right. You can see the honeymoon is everything's great and positive, and then stuff starts to happen. You hit reality with your business, and do you have it together? Can you actually go through it? Yeah, that's probably very well pointed at. That's actually the stress point.
Very interesting. And what are some of the ways, channels or tools you guys are using to acquire new customers?
We rely a lot on partnerships. So at this stage, because we are dealing with a super niche market, so we are dealing with a problem in the built environment that normally and for decades, architects and surveyors and development companies, construction companies would deal with. So when we go to a business leader and we say, hey, do you want to make your space sound better? It's just they they don't understand what we're talking about when we say acoustic design and talk about reverberation times and all these things. It's just not something they understand. And we noticed that instead of going in with a lot of educational stuff and let's try and educate the whole market before we sell to them, we realized that partnerships work well for us, where we share the customer base in such a way where it's a clear win-win. So now we're focusing on partnerships with acoustic engineering firms, architects as well, designers. And when it comes to, because we're solving the problem in the built environment, but we're doing it for the 30% of population who are looking for these spaces, and they're looking for these experiences that are not noisy, that are noise friendly and intentional and mindful and so on. So then when we look at the individuals at the B2C, we want to work with communities. We make a lot of awareness raising on social media. We have an annual hearing wellness week that happens on World Hearing Day every year, where we have over 10, 15 experiences next year, actually, with sound. So sonic dining experience, food and sound pairing, speakeasy, silent dating night. So then people are attracted to these because they're interesting, they're exciting. So then that's how we attract that side of the market. The customers come to something exciting and valuable.
Very nice. So it's kind of B2C is kind of like having the community kind of stuff and doing more events kind of stuff, and then it's like B2B, you kind of work together with partners who are kind of in the sound space, and from these partners, these clients go to these partners, and then you kind of like both all benefit, and it's a win-win, kind of, so to speak, right?
That's right. So venues, especially hospitality venues, they exist to attract more customers and to pay as little on marketing or getting new customers through the door. And so what we do, we go to them and say, we can make your space sound certified. And with that, we bring you 30% more customers that otherwise you wouldn't be able to target. And that's attractive, right? Because we do the PR for them. We promote the events. We have several venues in London now where we do regular unplugged shows and audio inclusive shows and gong bars and that sort of stuff. And it just works because everyone wins. People win because they go to a venue that is sound certified. The business wins, they get new customers, and we win in the middle as well. So works well.
And with all the experience you're having, right, of you being in the market and you being in the industry and in the industry where you are right now, if there's like you're standing in your shoes right now as we speak in the podcast, and if there's one thing you could do differently with all the lessons you've learned in the last years, what would it be?
It took me a while to learn that it's a long game. Whatever business idea or business I started, it's a long game, and it added to the experiences that I gained in the end. So everything that I know today is because I had these building blocks. But I wish I knew earlier that it's a long game, so I can be a bit more relaxed and to enjoy it a bit more, and not feel, oh yeah, this doesn't work, I need to do something else. So I had that for a while, which is why I started over 15 companies by the time I was 30. And then after 30, I've still set up a number of companies, two of which are turning over millions of pounds every year in two different industries. And with both, you had to be in for the long run, because one was renewable energy and the other one is health tech. In both of these, you can't just come up with a product overnight and sell it and then sell the business, because that's the trend we think we need to aim for. And with every business, you build new relationships. So it's a long game, because if you have that mentality, you then continue. Maybe you build something else later. So that's a lesson I learned, again, the hard way. And it creates such a relaxing atmosphere once you understand that. You're not in a rush. You don't need to work 16-hour days and so on. You might have the odd day, but you can also enjoy having a business. So that would probably be one for me.
It's part of like kind of trusting the journey, right? You're in it for the long game. And once you're in there, you're kind of trusting the journey. You kind of enjoy it. And then also the part of once you're enjoying, if you're working so much because you think you need to catch up, so you're always in this kind of rush mode and you don't have access to your full creativity in your brain. So I think even what you're saying, if you're more relaxed, you're also way more productive towards growing the business, because you can just access more, because your brain is just like, and your nervous system is just more relaxed, right? Which I think is very important, which people don't maybe not talk about a lot.
No, and I'm not sure if you ever speak to people right when they come back from holidays. So people come back from holidays and you ask them, so how are you doing? Man, I've been back for 2 days. I'm swamped. Like, I have a million things to do. Busy. Well, you probably don't even remember what you did on your holiday now. It's like you came back to a stressful environment, and there isn't an easy fix. I think it's a mindset fix rather than what's the best tool you can use to fix this stuff, or is AI going to fix this? I don't know. I think it's a mindset setup, the way you think about it. Yeah, but it took a while to learn to switch off. And actually, I learned after I took a 6-month sabbatical after I sold my stake in one of the companies, and I had nothing to do for 6 months. It was just free time. And when I got back, the values reversed. So I started to value first having that space, that time, desire to live and go and enjoy life and work. And I still work hard. I mean, I still love working and building and so on. But yeah, I think that's the lesson, is how do you enjoy the long run without burning out, I guess, or feeling stressed
Yeah.
about having to achieve things.
Very interesting, because if you do it like this, you're building on a healthy house, healthy foundation. So everything you build on top of the healthy foundation is very solid. My question to you is, let's say Harry Potter, right? And you have like magic wand, and with this magic wand, Harry Potter, you could solve any problem you're having in your business right now with the snap of a finger. What kind of problem would you choose with this magic wand?
Whew, okay. Well, do you actually have the wand, or you just, 'cause I would love to use it. It's great. Yeah. One of the frustrations is that it takes a while for the penny to drop, for people to realize the impact of noise, and then realize, okay, yeah, that makes sense now why it's a problem that we should fix. So if I would have a magic wand, I would probably get everyone to listen for 5 minutes to a short story that will reverse engineer how they think about sound and noise and what the sense of hearing is. And I think that will solve a lot of problems for us, and it will be much easier to progress with the mission that we have. So that's probably something which is a bit out there. Harry Potter is also a bit out there.
Yeah, very interesting. And I completely get what you're saying, right? It's kind of creating more awareness in the market, because there's always a small percentage which kind of know they need it, right? They know they have an issue and they know they need to solve it. But then there's the big bucket, right? And they don't really know they have the problem. But once they are aware, they hear your story, boom, they're bought in. But that's the thing. How can you reach those people, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we're trying to do in WHO. So I'm a facilitator for WHO World Hearing Forum. And whilst we have it really well in Europe and the US, the West, the global South countries, they are completely unaware. So we were talking about this. How can we launch a campaign where people just get it? So we're having a lot of fun with these ideas that will probably take a while to come to fruition. But now that you asked the question, I might bring the magic one in the conversation there as well.
Very nice. Toward talking about the goals, right? You guys are having with Sownd. What are some things you're striving towards in the next 6 to 12 months?
So in the next 6 months, we are launching the Hearing Wellness Week in London, more specifically in Hackney. And we partner up with the Mayor of Hackney and Hackney Council. So it's the first local authority to actually become audio inclusive, which is fantastic. So we need to launch that in March. We have 15 experiences lined up for that. About half of them, we already have confirmed the facilitators and who's going to run them. And we have gastrophysics and sex educators and all these people knowing things about sound and how it influences our behavior. You have no idea. It's incredible. And that's the 6 months goal. So 6 months goal, Hearing Wellness Week, Hackney, and getting the first 10 Hackney-based businesses sound certified. And then from that, we're going to run regular activities in these spaces. But in 12 months, which is actually about 18 months, we want to have a Hearing Wellness Summit. And the summit will be a London-wide and probably UK-wide activity where let's just shift the culture around sound and noise a bit more and involve businesses that sit outside of the work that we do, but also involved in sound and how spaces feel and how we develop tech and so on. So both of these are very exciting. They're, annual events. Everyone wants to join a party. So very excited about that.
Sounds very exciting. When do you have in Hackney? When is the exact dates for these events for the people who are watching it right now? And they're like, hey, I might want to join.
week starting 2nd of March. And I'm just going to throw it out there because I was thinking before the podcast, what can I offer your audience? And um, if anyone wants to join the Hearing Wellness Week, we're going to do wristbands that give you access to different experiences. But if anyone wants to join and drops an email in the next, I don't know, 48 hours from when this is going live with the subject dopamine podcast, I'll give them a wristband to have access to all the experiences so the first 10 people, so we don't overdo it. But first 10 people would be great to see you in London if you're not here. But if you're in London, even easier.
Nice. Everyone who's from London or you're around, it might be something. And some of the ways, right? People are watching it. How can they connect with you or the business?
I'm recently very active on LinkedIn, and I tend to respond to all the direct messages. So I don't have someone managing my LinkedIn, at least not yet. But also Sownd with W, Sownd, that's our website. You can sign up for experiences. We're going to obviously launch in other countries very soon as well. But right now, if you're up for a visit in London and you want to test how these experiences sound, sign up and you'll get an invite.
Nice. Thanks, Marion, so much for being here on the podcast, for sharing all your value, sharing all the lessons, talking about your company. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Make sure I'm going to drop all the links to find Marion in the description down below. So make sure to check it out. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Thanks, Marion.
Hey, bye.